The meeting is now being recorded live. You may proceed, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jamie. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's special meeting of the Boston Town Area Committee. My name is Councillor Paul Goodale, and I'm the chairman of this committee, and Councillor Colin Woodcock is my vice chairman. As is our protocol for ensuring awareness of who is in attendance, this evening our first point of business will be to take a roll call of all attendees. Jeanette, would you please take a roll call? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Would all attendees kindly advise that they are present, please? Councillor Alison Austin.
Present.
Councillor Alan Bell. Councillor Bell.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Anton Danny.
Present.
Councillor Anne Dorian.
Present.
Yourself, Chairman. Councillor Paul Goodale.
Present.
Councillor Martin Griggs.
Present.
Councillor Neil Hasty.
Present.
Councillor Martin Howard. Councillor Howard isn't present. Councillor Brian Rush.
Present.
Councillor Yvonne Stevens.
Present.
Councillor Colin Woodcock.
Present.
Councillor Stephen Woodliff.
Present.
And the officers, Phil Perry, the Assistant Director for Support Services and Partnership, and the lead officer for the committee. Are you there?
Present. Present.
Thank you. Community Safety Manager, Peter Hunn.
Present.
And Operations Manager, Matt Fisher.
Present, thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you. And myself, Jeanette Collier, I'm clerk to the committee. That concludes the roll call, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. We will move to into part one of the evening's agenda and address the preliminary items. Firstly, do we have any apologies for absence, Jeanette?
Yes, Chairman, there are apologies from councillors Vivienne Edge and Deborah Evans.
Thank you. B, to sign the minutes of the last meeting held on the 5th of August 2020. If any members wish to comment on the accuracy of these minutes, please identify now by using the raised hand button.
Where's that?
Nobody is indicating, Chairman.
I think I heard Councillor Rush say, where's that?
Yes, I'm looking for the raised hand buttons, Mr. Chairman.
Go on to the participants. You'll get a column on the right hand side.
I've got you.
Raised hand at the bottom.
Yeah, forgive my inability to understand technology.
It's all right. It took me ages to find it as well. We're in good company, Councillor Rush. As there are no queries then, I would take it that I have your agreement to sign the minutes. Thank you. Item C, update on actions from the minutes of the last meeting. Just to update you, I attended the Cabinet meeting on the 9th of September and presented this committee's recommendation regarding the events budget for this year and for next year, as seen in the minutes on page 6. The Cabinet approved these resolutions and also decided to remove the requirement for BTAC to seek Cabinet approval for expenditure of over £10,000, which I thank the Cabinet for that. So that's good news for us. D, to receive declarations of interest in respect of any items on the agenda. Do any members have any interest to declare?
Chairman. Oh.
Yes, Jeanette.
Councillor Alison Austin is indicating.
Austin.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have an interest, but I've just had a text message from Councillor Howard saying he's struggling to connect. I'm going to see if I can send him the link once I know which machine he's using. Okay, whether it's on his personal machine or the borough one.
Okay, Jeanette. Yeah. Sorry, Alison. Thank you for that. Okay.
Nobody else is indicating, Chairman.
Well, thank you for that, Jeanette. E, to answer any written public questions. Are there any?
Mr. Chairman,
There are none, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Councillor Roy.
may I interject? I have a deposition from Mr. Andrew Lovelace regarding the main item on the agenda. He has sent me through a letter, which I think is worthy of reading, really. It gives a bit of a synopsis of his experience, being that he lived very close to the park. So if you would allow me to, at some stage, at your discretion, obviously, allow me to read this out to the members.
Well, that's fine, Councillor. I think we can do that when we get into the debate on the main item in the agenda.
That's
If
fine.
that's okay with you.
Thank you.
Fine. Well, that concludes the preliminary items. And before we move into part 2 of this agenda, I would like to reiterate that members need to register to speak on the raised hand button only. Please do not simply raise your hand, basically because we can't see you all anyway, or I can't. And when the officers have finished their presentation, I will invite members to address the meeting in the order they have registered to speak. The business of the meeting this evening will be Woodville Road illegal encampment from July to August this year. The report on page 15 of the agenda will be presented by Mr. Hunn and Mr. Fisher. Right, so can I invite Mr. Hunn and Mr. Fisher then to present this evening's report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for yourself and BTAP members for inviting myself and Mr. Fisher to present our report to you this evening. If I could refer members to page 15 on the report, which you will see we've scheduled out. I'm now, and myself and Mr. Fisher will go through that report in detail for you. And at the end, as we said, we will be happy to answer any questions that members may have. So in order to consider security of the green spaces under its control, and Woodville Road specifically after the recent illegal encampment on the site between Friday the 31st of July 2020 and Wednesday the 5th of August 2020, BTAC Chairman, Councillor Paul Goodale has arranged this special meeting of the committee to be held accordingly. As requested by the BTAC Chairman, the following report highlights a timeline schedule of the Council's dealings with this illegal encampment. It also details reports made to the police and the council, actions of council officers, costs in relation to dealing with the incident, both internal and external, and quotations received into target harden the Woodville Road green open space area to prevent reoccurrence of this issue again in the future. We can now ask members to go to page 17. I will go through the report. So Appendix 1 of this report on pages 25 to 33 highlights the full timeline and schedule of reports dealing in relation to the Woodville Road illegal encampment incident. And I hope members have an opportunity to go through that earlier. The incident was first reported to the police at 12:54 hours on Friday the 31st of July. Police incident 215 of that same date details that vehicles and caravans have started pulling up on Woodville Road green open space. Customer Services at Boston Borough Council was first made aware of this incident at 13:03 hours of the same day. An email was sent to the duty ASB officer informing him of the call as per normal procedure. The duty ASB officer picked up the incident and started dealing with it at 13:45 hours on that same day. He spoke to the police and arranged service of the injunction and other legal notices that he needed to set up at 1500 hours. He also spoke to Councillor Rush and a number of other residents who was also calling in from that point to report the incident. At 15:10 hours on that same day, the duty ASB officer and police colleagues attended the site to serve each occupant with a copy of the Council's High Court Civil Injunction Order. This can be found at Appendix 2, pages 35 to 43 of the report. The duty ASB officer also served each occupant with a Section 77 directional notice. This can be found at Appendix 3, pages 45 to 47 of the report. Attending police officers took details of all vehicles and added it to the police incident 215, which had been created for that one of the day. Occupants on the site informed officers at this visit that they will be leaving the site on the evening of Sunday, the 2nd of August. Over the next 2 days, which was the Saturday and Sunday, a further 13 police incidents was reported to Lincolnshire Police, which were alleged to involve occupants from this illegal encampment. A further 4 emails were sent to the ASB team reporting concerns about the occupants, and numerous social media comments were made via the council social media and other platforms. A joint visit was made again to the illegal encampment at 10:00 hours on Monday the 3rd of August 2020 after the occupants had failed to leave the site. Photos were taken on this visit and a selection can be found at Appendix 4, which can be found at pages 49 to 59 of the report. The occupants were asked to clean up the rubbish and rolls of black sacks were given for this purpose. The duty ASB officer made contact with an officer of the National Vehicle Crime Intelligence Service at 11:45 hours on that same day to make an appointment to attend the site for further checks to be undertaken on all the vehicles. A joint visit was arranged at 1400 hours on Tuesday the 4th of August 2020. Duty ASB officer and police attended the site at 17:15 hours on Monday the 3rd of August 2020 to serve a Section 78 summons for occupants to attend court on Thursday the 6th of August. Appendix 5 of this report, pages 61 to 62, shows that Section 78 summons which was served. This was received from the court at 1600 hours on that same day. In the early hours of the next day, Police Incident 36 of the 4th of August highlights a report from occupants that someone had tried to petrol bomb their caravan. So a site visit was arranged by the duty ASB officer and police on the morning of Tuesday the 4th of August. They attended to offer reassurance in relation to the Incident 36, which was detailed in 4.2 of the report. All occupants spoken to could not offer any descriptions other than they were possible males and possible foreign involved in the incident. The only fire damage observed were to the roundabout play equipment on the site. Appendix 6, page 63 of this report shows a selection of photos taken at the time of that visit, which shows damage to the play equipment, signs of defecation and rubbish on the site. The duty ASB officer informed the occupants on that visit that he would be attending later with an officer of the National Vehicle Crime Intelligence Service to conduct further vehicle checks. On hearing this, some of the male occupants started to become aggressive to the attending officers and threatened to break people's fingers if their caravans was touched. They also stated that if officers messed with them any further, they would bring another 50 caravans and that they would never leave the site. The attending police sergeant liaised with the duty police inspector, who made the decision that the National Vehicle Crime Intelligence Service officer or any other police officer should not attend that site again, unless for an emergency or a life-threatening situation, but to await the court date before any further report or action was taken. The duty inspector detailed on the original police incident that the decision was made because the police did not have the adequate resources at that time to deal with a large disorder, which he believed was likely to happen. On hearing this from the police, the decision was made that no council officer should visit the site again until after the occupants had left, or only to serve the eviction paperwork from the court, which was occurring in 2 days' time. Police reported that on Wednesday the 5th of August, it looked like at 18:24 hours, it looked like they were starting to move. And we got confirmation from a resident at 19:30 hours that the travellers had started to move off at that point. The duty ASB officer attended the site at 2200 hours and confirmed that all the occupants had left the area. Internal contact was then made to other officers of the council to make sure that the play equipment was sealed off and the area commenced cleanup the next day. I'd now like to hand over to Mr. Fisher, our operations manager, who will go through the operation cleanup. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Pete. Yes, Mr. Chairman. In respect to the cleanup operation, we deployed a team of 10 street scene and fly tipping colleagues to help deal with the initial cleanup. That work started at 6 a.m. on the 6th. So as soon as we reasonably could after the vacation had occurred, we collected a number of black bag waste, as you can see in the photos, litter across the site, other household waste items which were left across the space. We carried out a detailed inspection of the site to make sure that nothing was left over which could cause harm to people. The most significant cleanup activity was in relation to the play area itself and the play equipment. As the report details, we found quite a considerable amount of offensive material, and that contaminated 2 particular items of play equipment. As a result of that, we took the decision to close the play area. We took additional measures by installing Harris fencing around the play equipment mostly impacted. We erected signage and gave a very clear message to the community for their safety to please keep out. We completed the deep clean and deep sanitization of the equipment on the 11th. It did take us a couple of days to do that. We also had to repair the safety surfacing, which had been fire damaged. We opened the play area as soon as we could. It did take us 6 days to deal with the entire cleanup operation. We couldn't open the play area until we were entirely confident that it was safe to do so. I do know that it was an inconvenience to the local community, and we do thank the community for their patience and understanding whilst we were able to do this. The cost was a little over £3,100, so a reasonably considerable cost in terms of that cleanup. In relation to protecting the site against future illegal encampments, this is where we're asking members of this committee to make a decision tonight. We looked at 4 options. The first option being erecting a fence around the perimeter of the space between Sleaford Road and Woodville Road. We looked at the option of installing a soil bund, basically a mound, which would be around the perimeter of the space. We looked at installing concrete bollards across the perimeter, and we looked at the obvious do nothing option. The detailed appraisal is found on Appendix 8 of your report, but basically what we are recommending as the most effective solution in terms of protecting this space against illegal encampments in future is to install a galvanized steel fence, and that is very similar to the fence which is already around the play area. That fence would be effectively maintenance free. That would be the least intrusive impact in terms of the visual amenity of that area. It would have a number of benefits in terms of improving the safety of park users also. The cost of that is 19,470. That cost is slightly higher than the bollard option, but as mentioned, the fence does really provide the most effective solution to preventing this happening again. And I think we have to recognise we've had 4 incidents now in just over 3 years. So that would be the recommendation for the committee in terms of protecting the site in future. So, Mr. Chairman, if I just hand over back to Mr. Hunt to go through the legal report, which was done for us, and also the police consultation.
Thank you, Matt. It's Peter.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Mr. Chair. On pages 71 to 78, members will find Appendix 9, which is legal advice that we sought from Lincolnshire Legal Services, which we believe that members would find interesting in relation to the legal aspects of this case. It's quite detailed. Report was updated from Lincolnshire Legal Services Senior Solicitor, Mr. Andrew Goldsborough, where he detailed about the council's current High Court injunction order, the legislation that was actually used for this legal encampment and the previous encampment in July of this year, which was at Sheldon's Field at Robin Hood's Walk, and any new and changing legislation with regard to dealing any illegal encampment in the future. Mr. Goldsborough has indicated that he would be happy to speak to members at any other meeting set up to answer any questions, queries they may have with regard to his detailed update found under Appendix 9. Obviously, in this particular case and incident, we're heavily involved the police supporting officers in relation to this case. So we did a consultation with the inspector who actually made the decision at the time on there, and members will find that at page 79, Appendix 10 on the report, which is an update from Lincolnshire Police, namely Inspector Nick Waters, who was covering the Boston Borough during the time of that illegal encampment while Inspector Harrod was on annual leave, and which details the work of the local neighbourhood policing team at the time and the decision making on behalf of Lincolnshire Police throughout that incident. Inspector Waters details that because officers of the council had already commenced legal process and to balance the needs of the occupants of the illegal encampment during COVID-19, he felt it was proportionate to allow the legal action taken by the council to run without the requirement of any further legal action by the police with regard to their removal. So in conclusion, Mr. Chairman and members, this report in the attached appendices gives a timeline schedule and update to members on the council's actions, dealings and associated costs with regards to the recent illegal encampment on Woodville Road recreational ground between Friday the 31st of July to Wednesday the 5th of August. The report highlights the areas other agencies such as Lincolnshire Police, Lincolnshire Legal Services and the courts play when the council has an incident of an illegal encampment set up on an area it owns or has control of. The Woodville Road recreational ground has now seen 4 separate incidents of illegal encampments set up within the last 3 years. Each occurrence has seen an increase in reports of crime and antisocial behaviour, and the effect on local residents, businesses and services has had a massive detrimental effect on lives and well-beings. The report highlights the council's and other agencies' resources, including costs to the councils in dealing with the incident of its nature, and in particular associated to this one incident at Woodville Road. The report also highlights to members what legal powers is currently available to the council and any new prevailing legislation which may be enacted to come in the future. The recommendation of this report is to find the required finances to target hardening the Woodville Road site to prevent reoccurrence in the future. And if I can refer members back to page 15, I'll now go through in detail the recommendations of the report. So, of course, as every report that the officers make, we do ask that members review, comment and challenge the information presented within the report and its appendices. And number 2, as Mr. Fisher detailed, we are asking that members provide £19,470 to fund the protection of Woodville Road recreational ground with a galvanised steel fence similar to that already in place around the play area. The green open site on Woodville Road has seen illegal encampments set up 4 times in the last 3 years. On each occasion, but especially on this last occasion, it has seen numerous reports to both the police and the council and has had a detrimental effect on residents and businesses in the local area. Increased target hardening of the site would discourage and prevent further illegal encampments from occurring and protect the asset, hopefully giving confidence to residents that this type of occurrence would not happen again in the future on this site. Of course, members do have other options, and one of them could be do nothing, but we do not recommend that that is an option you take due to the negative impact of residents and businesses within the areas, the costs associated to the council and other agencies such as the police in dealing with illegal encampment, and the clean up and repair of the site after the encampment has left. So thank you, members, for reading and listening to the report. That is now at the end of our presentation, and myself and Mr. Fisher are happy to answer any questions members may have.
Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Matt, for that report. I will open the meeting to comments and questions. I appreciate that Councillor Rush has a letter he wished to read, and he did indicate first, if you like. So I will ask Councillor Rush to come and read or present his petition or letter first, and then if you would use the hand button, please, and I'll ask Jeanette to invite you to screen in order that you indicate. So Councillor Rush, would you like to read your letter?
Yes, Councillor. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you, Councillor Rush.
Now, you may not see me, but that's probably a privilege for you, really. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll just preempt this letter by saying that I was the first one on the scene at this thing. I was given very early morning call about the invasion or the potential invasion. Oops, sorry, I do apologise. Jane, you mum. I do apologise for that.
Okay.
We can't control BT, I'm afraid.
No, I'm afraid not.
Okay, so I've been presented with a letter from a local neighbour, someone who was in a position to view everything that happened within the actual playing field, and someone that we do know very well, Mr. Lovelace. Let me just read it, Mr. Chairman, and I'll come to the end, and then we can talk about it a little bit. So it goes, dear BTAC members, I would like to give you some information firsthand of what happened when the travellers invited themselves onto Woodville Road playing field from the 31st of July to the 7th of August. We have lived on Sleaford Road opposite Woodville Park for 19 years, and this happens year in, year out, and these travellers have been the worst as yet to stay there. They broke into a council property and ran a hose pipe to steal water and causing damage to the property. A number of times they had quad bikes running all over the grounds. Several vehicles didn't have MOTs, nor were they taxed to be on the road. I am a local tradesman, and I didn't want to see them driving into my drive day in, day out, and have my van broken into and my tools stolen. My wife had taken our dog for a walk in the morning one day and had gone out shopping, and on our CCTV, we had a woman making a beeline to our house and was enticing our dog to keep it through a gap in the fence, until our oldest son pulled our dog away and took him inside and locked the doors. I was away that weekend at a motorhome and caravan trade show at Peterborough and didn't get back until Sunday night to see 30 plus caravans on the park. My wife and boys didn't sleep very well on Friday and Saturday nights until I returned, and I didn't want that to happen again. There were other cases on Facebook of dog walkers being approached about their dogs, which made us even more concerned. To avoid drawing attention to our dog, we decided to take him out into the car to walk him elsewhere, and made sure that we didn't leave him in the garden unattended. Once they had left the park, it was clear to see the mess they had left behind. There was rubbish left strewn everywhere, with a disgusting amount of human waste on the children's play area that all had to be deep cleaned. The council have to put up some sort of fence or barriers or bollards, or even dig a trench to stop them just pulling on the park again. The council-owned ride-on lawnmower could access the park via a lock gate on Woodville Road or through some form of lockable, removable bollard along Sleaford Road. So I asked the council BTAC members to back this proposal to make the park safe for our children to play in. Andrew Lovelace. Mr. Chairman, that's the letter. I would prefer to speak after other members who have indicated to speak, and I hope you'll give me that opportunity. But I do hope that all members will take note of. Most of us don't actually live near the park, but this gentleman does, and he said it was a terrifying experience. Mr. Chairman, I'll rest there for the time being. I hope you will let me come back.
Indeed, councillors. Thank you very much for that. Right, Jeanette, do we have any members wishing to speak?
Yes, Chairman, councillors Dorian, Stevens and Woodleaf in that order.
Thank you. And Councillor Dorian, please.
Hi, Chairman, thank you for that. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Hunn and Mr. Fisher for giving us a great report and presentation. We can always rely on our officers to give us a great steer in these reports, some of which can be quite complicated. This one had a great deal of information in it, and I'm really grateful for the effort that both officers put in. So thanks very much for that. I've just got a couple of questions just to start with for Mr. Hunn, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So I'm on page, well, first of all, thank you for telling us the number of times right at the end there. That was going to be my first question, how many times the travellers had landed on Woodville Road Park, or Woody Park as it's commonly known, 4 times in the last 3 years. So no wonder the residents are up in arms about it. So on to page 17, Mr. Hunn, it says at 2.3, the travellers told the officers they were going to leave on Sunday. Did you ever get a reason as to why they didn't actually leave, other than they just don't ever tell the truth?
I'm afraid the only answer we got, Councillor Dorian, was they were visiting a relative in Pilgrim Hospital at the time, which they expected to come out that weekend, of which they didn't. We didn't get any evidence of any relative being in the hospital at that time, but they told us we'd go and they didn't, hence why we served the Section 78 on the next day.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to page 18, 3.2. I'm just curious to know why the duty ASB officer waited before contacting the NAVCIS, particularly now that Mr. Lovelace has commented, and he obviously did some checks himself, that a number of vehicles weren't MOT'd, presumably they're not taxed or insured either, if that was the case. So why did the officer wait then before inviting that body in, that organisation?
Thank you, Councillor Dorian. The officer did attempt to contact our named contact on the Friday, so the first went there. Unfortunately, we could not get hold of anyone until that Monday. Okay, thank you for that. And on 4.2, still on page 18, Chair, on 4.2, was there any type of evidence at all found in terms of this petrol bomb allegation? Was there any inflammable liquid or broken glass that would have suggested that was true? And in answer to that one, Councillor Dorian, the only fire damage we could find on that visit the next day was to our own roundabout equipment. A site survey was completed with the occupants, and there was no evidence of any broken glass at that time or fire damage to any of the caravans. Okay, thank you. And then on 5.2, I'm just curious as to why the antisocial behaviour officer indicated that he had contacted the NAVCIS and alerted them to the fact that they were coming. What made him do that? It is a tactic that we use in relation to inform them before, in a hope that that may get them to move a little bit quicker. In this case, had the opposite effect, where they then obviously made threats to the officer and obviously said that they did. But we have used that before, and it has at times worked. In this case, it didn't. Okay, yeah, I can see that. That precipitated some horrific behaviour on the part of the travellers, and that was extremely traumatic, I think, for the duty antisocial behaviour officer. And you know, I am pleased, actually. I know it must have been frustrating for the residents, but I am pleased that he was withdrawn from the site at that point, because our duty of care at that point was to him and to ensure that he wasn't harmed in any way. Over to page 19,
On 8.2, the last point on that page, I would suggest, Chair, that we disregard those costs when tallying up the total, because quite honestly, the antisocial behaviour officer is, is on salary, and I don't think, unless I'm wrong, and Mr. Hunt can correct me, that we incurred any additional cost by paying overtime or anything, or perhaps we did.
No, they are. Sorry if I can answer that question, Councillor. Yeah, no, they are the costs that the officers spend on that case. We actually do these costs for court records because they need these details in relation to the time that we spend as officers. But no overtime was done from there. I even made him attend the site on when they left at 10 o'clock and didn't pay him for that. So I do owe him some lieu hours for doing that at some stage.
Okay, I'm sure he'll hold you to those, Mr. Hunt. So just making a complete swerve now, if we could go to page 73, Chair. I'm looking at now and thank you for this great evidence from the courts. First of all, did this legal report cost us any extra money going through Legal Services Lincolnshire? Did that cost us anything, son?
I'm sure we will get a bill at some stage for that, but I've not received that cost yet. But we do work quite regularly with Mr. Goldsborough, and he does give us some quite excellent legal advice, and at times free of charge for those. So I can't answer that question honestly in this one, whether we will be charged or not.
Okay, so I'll put the brake on costs for a minute. I would like to then ask, he raises a really good point on page 73, which is the third of the bullet points towards the bottom of the page. And by law, the Court of Appeal says that local authorities must or should regularly engage with the gypsy and traveller community. I'd just like a little bit more information on that, if you have it, Mr. Hunt, and I'm not sure if you're the right person to speak to or not, as to who would do that, how they do it, and do we keep a record of what goes on with that?
I can answer part of that question, and I think Mr. Goldsborough, if he attends another meeting, will be able to expand in details. But we work quite regularly with the Travellers Officer at Lincolnshire County Council, a gentleman called Nick Willey, who's in contact with obviously all the groups from there. There is actually a Teams meeting tomorrow with a number of agencies, and again, they are also involved in that group, and that meets on quarterly basis, I believe. But Nick Willey is our contact at Lincolnshire County Council, and he's in regular contact with the community groups.
Okay, I think if we could have a little bit of an update, Chair, on any work that's been done on our behalf as a council, I think I would value that. I will accelerate on, Mr. Chair. I know that other people are waiting to speak. On page 78, the upshot is, sorry, page 78 and 79, the solicitor tells us the police clearly had powers to deal with this, but they didn't have the resources. And at the end of the day, it all came down to the fact that they didn't have the personnel that they needed to do the kind of job that could have presented itself. And of course, that sadly is a result of austerity. And now if I put the brakes on there, go back to page 15, where we'll look at the recommendation. I can understand why Councillor Rush brought this to committee, and I'm really pleased he has. It's a shame the other ward member didn't see fit to attend tonight to support him. And I think it would be appropriate to spend that kind of money to protect Woodville Park, especially as it's had 4 incursions in 3 years. I would like to say though that we're all town ward councillors, and we all have parks in our areas. And I would be looking to caution BTAC that, you know, this could open a tap, and other councillors might come forward wanting protection for their own parks so that their residents don't suffer the way these did. So I look forward to the rest of the debate, but I would be very much inclined to support the recommendations. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Councillor Doran. Just on your final point, yes, I'm fully aware of that, and at a future meeting we will have be looking at all the other BTAC play areas within our, obviously, to look at what methods we can use on those as well. So we'll be looking at them all within in the near future.
Okay, that's good to hear.
I'm well aware that that once we block off one, we sort of make others seem more attractive.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dorian. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chairman. It's been interesting up to now, and I support everything that's been said by previous councillors. But I'd also like to take this opportunity to say thank you to all the staff involved in that filthy, dirty job of cleaning up that field. So a great big thank you, and I'm sure the whole BTAC committee will echo that. Yes, we do need protection for Woodville Park, but I question if the recommendation is the correct one. And the reason I say this is because, as we're all aware, Sheldon's Field recently had a visitation from gypsy encampments, caused a lot of problems in the cemetery by their toilet business, and also the fact that they were using council water. But perhaps you know, perhaps you don't know, and Councillor Hasty and Councillor Edge may be aware, I don't know, but I certainly became aware that before the gypsy encampment came, the perfectly good galvanised fence that was there at Sheldon's Field, on one evening a car came and ran into it, knocked it down. So they do get knocked down very easily. The car then left and went away. There were men spotted in Sheldon's Field a few days later, apparently, and they were making, it would appear, provision for the caravans to come. Because as a council, our guys weren't aware that this was a matter of prime importance, and to get the fence repaired immediately. And because that it wasn't repaired immediately, and this is no criticism on our guys, because they've obviously got work planned in their diaries and they've got to do it as it comes. And because it wasn't repaired immediately, then the entrance to Sheldon's Field was over a broken fence. So they were able to enter because there was no fence to stop them. And this is why I bring up the question of whether a galvanised fence is the correct one. And obviously it'll be for the committee to decide. But what I do wonder, if a car is going to run into a reinforced concrete bollard, yes, it might break the bollard, but it's not going to knock it over. It's because the reinforcement is going to be there within it. So I just would like to throw this into the debate and to see what my fellow councillors think about the protection, because I totally agree. Woodville Park needs something. It needs something that's not unsightly. A fence all the way round isn't necessarily going to give the protection that I feel is necessary, because I do believe they will come back. They found us an easy touch. So when they find something an easy touch, people will abuse it again and again. So I would like to finish there, but I would be very interested to see what my fellow councillors thought about the concrete bollards, because if you go to page 22, the concrete bollards come in at 18,620, but if these are just ordinary concrete bollards, I don't know. But if we've got reinforced concrete bollards, they will probably come in more expensive. But personally, I think a reinforced bollard will do the job. So I'll finish there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Woodliff. Councillor Woodliff.
Thank you, Chairman. Am I there?
You are, Councillor Woodliff, you are here.
Thank you, Chairman. Right, I've got a few questions anyway to ask. Peter. Yep. What action is being taken by the police against those responsible for the various thefts from local businesses, from the the garage, several attempts there, from the cooperative, I believe, on Woodville Road, and maybe others. So what action is being taken by the police against those responsible for stealing goods and services from those shops? Because all those shops would have had CCTV, the garage has certainly got it. So they should be able to identify who was responsible for it. And even if it's children, yeah, we can identify which families they came from. So I'd like to know, first of all, what action is taken by the police against those responsible. Peter?
Thank you, Councillor Woodliff. I unfortunately cannot answer that question. It's obviously Lincolnshire Police is a separate agency from myself. I do not have details of those incidents and what happened with those to them. Maybe that is a recommendation or a question that could be asked if police are invited to a further meeting, or members wish, I could ask for additional details and send to members about the police incidents recorded at the time to get that detail for you.
Yes, I think that'd be helpful if you could ask the police for a breakdown of all the actions they plan to take in respect of the thefts, and also what's been done in the past, because there have been 3 other incursions and may well have been thefts from businesses at those occasions. What action was taken on those occasions? So perhaps you could answer that for them, or get them to answer that.
Again, from the police side, I won't be able to answer on behalf of the police because it's a separate agency. From our side in those, we served our injunction papers and they left before, obviously, we was at court. So that's all I can say on that matter.
I understand that, Peter. I'm concerned about whether the police followed up the various thefts in the past that may have occurred with a prosecution, because it seems to me that, that if people break into premises, they steal goods from shops and they steal goods from the garage, and one of them lists actually the theft of petrol, I think, isn't it? Then these things have to be pursued. So that's what I want to know from the police. That's my first question. Yeah. I'd like to know, second, you won't be able to answer this perhaps, but what action has our Member of Parliament taken in regard of all this? Because there was a debate in Parliament in, I think, 2018, organised by Andrew Sellis MP, Conservative MP, and action was called for then, and here we are 2 years later. Doesn't seem as though very much has happened. You won't be able to answer that one, but perhaps our Member of Parliament, if he were listening in, will be able to answer it. So I'm not going to ask you, Peter, to answer that one. It's not fair, is it? But it is a question. I have thought about the people who back onto the park and whether or not we need to have a fence along the back of the park to ensure that people cannot get from the park into the gardens of the people who back onto it. Because if I lived on Westfield Road, it's Westfield Avenue, isn't it? I would be concerned about the safety of my property if another incursion occurred. So would this fence actually go along the back? And would it be high enough to stop people jumping the fence and getting into people's gardens? Can you answer that?
I think Mr. Fisher will come in and answer this one. That's okay, but I do believe there is a fence.
Over to you then.
Thank you.
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Woodliff. It was not the intention to install the galvanised steel fence, creating an additional boundary to those properties. There is an existing fence already there. Now, I'm not entirely sure, and I don't want to give the incorrect information to committee. I'm not sure who owns that fence, whether it's actually the council's fence or individual residents' fence, but certainly the option that we're recommending is just around the perimeter of Sleaford Road and around the perimeter of Woodville Road. And by doing that, obviously the intention is to prevent people getting onto that site.
Yes, okay, Matt, I understand that. Well, that's fair enough. Of course, although steel fences can be very effective as a another councillor who's not here tonight told me that you know, a cutting tool can cut through steel fairly quickly if they choose to do it. You know, and if they turn up with a couple of angle grinders or whatever, they can probably whip through the fence fairly fast. So I did wonder about what protection for the people, you know, who live in the boundary, because I'm very, very concerned about the safety and the welfare of the people who actually live near the park. And we've got to consider the valuation of their properties, because many people have bought properties along there. It's a lovely park. You think it'd be a nice place to be. But of course, this type of event, it has a detrimental effect upon the people who live there and the valuation of their properties. So I think we've got to consider that as well. Another question, if that's all right. Chairman, can I ask another question?
Indeed, Councillor Woodville.
Oh, thank you. Thank you much. Thank you. I know that in the past we've looked at CCTV for this park, and I know that there are various difficulties associated with it. I think it's difficult to get a connection from that park to our offices, but I think we have to look seriously at that and providing CCTV cover for that park. And it may well be that perhaps we could utilize perhaps the care home, which is Park Place, might allow us to install a mast on their property, if that's necessary, to give us the connection which is necessary to our offices. But because we must have CCTV coverage for the area so that we can watch carefully about what's going on. So I know there's a difficulty about connection in the past. I also know that when we were installing CCTV for the town itself, the new system, we did look at GPS, I think it was, a satellite connection. It was an extra amount of money, in addition to the kind of, you know, line of sight type of setup. But I know we did look at the idea of having a satellite connection for CCTV. So that is a possibility that perhaps we could reconsider if we can't get a direct line of sight on from the park to the offices. That's last. I've got one more thing. I do apologise, Chairman, but one more thing. I do go to page 77, and I am very, very disappointed with the police on this. Very disappointed that they didn't have the staff, because I know that in a major incident occurs, the Lincolnshire Police can call upon support from Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire and Leicestershire, and have done in the past. So I'm very disappointed to say, well, that they simply washed their hands of us because they couldn't organise a proper response. And I would like a response from the Chief Constable on this, before he disappears off to Scotland or whatever, before he retires. I'd like an answer from him as to why he didn't authorise support from Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire and elsewhere in order to support us here, because there could have been a very major event here. If local residents had got annoyed, we could have had a major riot here. And that there doesn't seem to have been the support from the police here to be able to deal with it. So I think I would like a response from the Chief Constable as to why he didn't authorise extra support for our officers in this area, because we are short of officers here. I'd like to know why. I think I probably said enough there, Chairman. I'll put most of it in writing, okay, and dispatch it to the various people. But that's the way I'm thinking at the present minute. I don't know whether Matt and Peter want to come back on anything I've said. Peter, Matt, do you have any comments to make? Are you shaking your heads?
If I can come back, Councillor Woodville, Mr. Chairman. I have looked at the CCTV option because since we previously looked about CCTV on our play areas, technology as it does has moved on, and there is now options for what we call 4G broadband connections, wireless, that we can do. We are looking at getting a quote for one in relation to another area in town at the moment. The sighting of the CCTV was the one of the issues. We wasn't planning to get a pole tall enough to the CCTV. The option of the care home may be an option that we could look at, but if you're happy and if the committee's happy, I can investigate that a little bit further to obtain some costs to see if that is now an option that we could do from there. And the second one, I also have frustrations in relation to decisions that was made, but I'd also like to thank and put on record that the local police support they gave my officer from attending with him to serve all the time for the decision making they made, I couldn't fault. The local policing team was absolutely amazing, and they support us every single time we go out to do that. And without that, I would definitely wouldn't be sending any officers to do from there. So local policing, absolutely brilliant. I think a decision or a discussion about what decision was made and why with senior officers, maybe something that officers or members want to recommend at a later date.
Oh, thank you, Peter. I think that's a fair comment. I accept that regarding local officers, but there's a big question to ask from the senior officers way away in Lincoln, hiding away in Netlham. We need to get them to call them to account, and particularly the chief constable for not providing Boston with the support which were entitled. He could have asked Nottinghamshire, he could have asked Leicestershire. They do provide officers. And was it just a decision, well, I'm not going to spend the money? That's the question, isn't it? Okay, Peter, I'll tell you what, I'll ask that question at the police and crime panel of Mark Jones. I shall enjoy that. But even so, it has to be said, what was the chief constable up to? Okay, I don't think there's anything else I can ask, actually, without breaking any rules. Okay, Chairman, so I'll let other people step in now, okay? Thank you very much, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. And thank you, officers Peter and Matt, for the answers you gave. Thank you very much.
I mean, at the end of the meeting, I was going to ask, when we look at the work programme, I mean, I was going to propose that we actually, I've already asked Jeanette to invite the Police and Crime Commissioner, Lincolnshire Police, and our MP to a future meeting of BTAC to address these very issues. So, but I've obviously that was going to be at the end of this meeting. But I've already asked that Jeanette, we actually invite them to come to a future meeting. So, but anything you wish to pursue in your other role, Stephen, that's fine.
I shall enjoy that, Chairman. You can be certain of that. I'm not going to let that lot off the hook, so I shall pursue them. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay, but I can see a number of hands up. Jeanette, do you know the order?
Yes, Chairman, it's Councillor Woodcock, and then Councillor Rush, Councillor Bell, Councillor Hasty, Councillor Griggs, and Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Jeanette. Okay then, so Councillor Woodcock then, please.
Okay, let's make sure that we're actually on. Right, good evening. So if we look at a total of probably nearly £50,000 to make a good job of it, and so it doesn't happen again. That's with the clearing up and correcting what you think would be the best solution. And I think I would support that solution, because there's little point in making half the job. However, as we said, there are lots of other places that they could select. It's a well-known fact, I think, that they go around and they scout out what's there and what they would have to do to take possession. Would you agree with that?
I think that's a generally held view, yeah. Yeah.
So if that's the case, then Woodville Road is a large area, and it's got a lot of places of access, but there are other places in the town. For example, Burgess's Pit, which actually I'm sat about 200 yards from here as I sit here now, and I walked around it quite a bit. But it has three very easily access areas there. Two of them would require just pulling down a concrete post, which Councillor Stevens said can be quite easily done, particularly if you take the right sort of truck with you. But there'll be two areas of access for that. There's one where you can drive in from now from Preston Road. So to correct that and ensure that it wasn't going to get hit, it would probably make sense to do some work on what is there, because it's got a very limited area from where you can access it. The three roads in, and it's not like trying to provide for Woodville Road. So I wonder if there are other areas that can be protected at an amount that isn't going to come to 25,000. And we could probably look at things like Burgess's Pit and other areas to keep them out. As I say, I think if we could do some work prior to it happening, the event happening, it might be more efficient financially to actually do that. What would be your views on that, please?
Well, my view is, as you know, Council, the officers are actually looking at all of the other play areas, and we'll be coming back, or other land which we have responsibility for, and coming back with the options for those areas to a future committee. I mean, obviously, this one it being where it is and the accessibility of it, basically put it to the top of the list. But the officers are actually looking at all the other areas that we are responsible for, to look at how we can best protect those.
Yeah, I think that's what we've got to look in the future to do, to hamper them and not make life easy for them. And doubtless we'll never ever solve the problem. It will always be there, but we would prefer it not to be in the town centre. My God, what happens if, for example, they manage to take over the park, Central Park? It would be disastrous. But, if the gates are open, just ride straight on in.
Well, the officers have closed the gates.
Oh yeah, I did know that actually. It's walking through them yesterday. Yeah, but as I say, we don't need to make life easy for them, and I think the work that the lads have done in cleaning up after that horrible mess is hugely meritable. You've done a great job, and I think we need to support you as much as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Councillor Rush.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I've listened intently to all of the presentations here, and I have to say I've made up my own mind in a lot of ways. It's been very helpful, by the way. But the first thing I'd like to say is I'd like to congratulate Mr. Ian Dunn for the bravery he showed during that weekend. And I have to say that when you get a lot of people with that kind of anger going on, the safest way probably is to disperse. But again, as Councillor Walton said, sorry, well, I'm getting my W's mixed up. As one of the other speakers said, the police have got a lot to answer for here, really. We've just heard earlier on that we've had 4 different incursions. I think it was 4, possibly 5 different incursions over the years. And I can't believe that in this day and age of technology and all the rest, that the legal system hasn't geared itself up for this kind of incursion. Neither do we have any facilities, I believe, for this type of traveller community. And maybe Peter Hunn will correct me on that. Now, I do know there are some down on what we call the Redstone estate, but I'm not sure how many, but I think they're quite limited. But I think we're going to have to get to the point, if we're going to be spending £20,000 on fencing and that kind of thing, which I really do want to do, by the way, we ought to be providing some kind of facility for these travellers. They're not going to go away. They're not going to leave. They've been around since the first dawn, I think. And they do make an awful mess. However, unless we provide an amenity for them to be looked after, or to somewhere that they can go as a stopover, then they will continue to invade our parks. Now, Councillor Woodcock made the point that there are a number of other parks, and that's absolutely right. And so the easiest way, as far as I'm concerned, is that number one, we provide a facility that allows them a place to stop over with some facilities for washing or whatever. And I know they resist that a little bit, but having said that, the sensible way to do this is to actually provide an amenity so that when they do, or if they do, encroach upon our parks, then I think the courts and the police and everyone else would have a far better chance of getting a result out of that if we have already taken the trouble to provide a facility. Now, no one yet has mentioned this, and whether we like it or not, these people are human beings. They are entitled to their lifestyle. I'm not sure they're entitled to do what they do as they go around, but surely we could contain them in their own environment. And if they come outside of that environment, then surely we have the right then to move them along or do what we have to do with the greatest of force. I'm talking about a documentary force and not brutality. So I think we really do need to rethink this whole thing. But in the meantime, I have to be honest and say, and I've got a great pride for Woodville Park. It is in my ward, and I was the first one that was notified of this. And I have to say, I spent a lot of time down there with Ian Dunn and the rest of them, actually making sure neighbours were looked after, etc., etc. In fact, I think I was probably the only one. But that's neither here nor there. We need to make that park secure. I think we need to be very careful how we proceed with a barrier fence. I think it has to be tasteful, but it has to be effective. And not only that, there's another element that I think makes the expense probably not as bad as what we might think, is there is always the chance, and I've seen this myself, and I'm sure many of you have as well, where a ball is kicked or thrown or whatever from that park, and I've seen on a number of occasions a child run out blindly, and it's only been the good driving experiences of the car owner that has avoided a really, really serious accident. So let's think outside the box. Number one, Woodville Park is the first entrance into the town that shows a really nice vista for this town. The money that's been spent in there can't be wasted. It is a lovely park. There is some great facilities. It's probably one of the best facilitated parks in the whole town, besides Town Park. But it is a gateway to Boston. And I think that we have to put a fence up to stop that, to keep our children safe, to keep miscreants out, and to help the police identify who is to blame. It's not rocket science. I think that the fence that we do put up, if we do raise the money or find a way, it needs to be as close to the road as we can possibly get it, and encompass the pathways that a lot of people use, either going to school or going down Sleaford Road. It's a very, very busy pedestrian area. And I think we have a duty, a real duty to our population to make sure that they're kept safe, and that our park remains as beautiful as it has been for years and years. The people down there are very proud of it. I think we should support them, and then maybe move on time after time and address the issues that my other councillor colleagues have mentioned. And there's no point in being defeatist, as I've heard one or two of our councillors say about bollards not being very good or whatever. We all know that anything can be broken, smashed and pulled away. What we have to do is make it as inconvenient as we possibly can. And I don't like this give up attitude. I think that we should be seen to do things properly on behalf of our neighbourhood. Mr. Chairman, there may not have been many questions in there, but I have to say the observations I'm making are highly important. And the experience that I had over that week, almost a week, was something I don't want to visit again. And I have to applaud Ian Dunn and his men and the police that helped him out. But I think next time we do, if we ever get this again, we really need to come down very, very hard on these people, because it's the only thing that will have them, make them go away. If you give them an easy run, they'll be back. And in the words of a film star, so will I. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope we can put something in action. And I do have a lot of confidence in our officers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rush. Councillor Bell.
Thank you very much, Chair. Most of my questions have been answered. I want to say first and foremost, thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much, Matt. And please, yes, definitely pass on our thanks to the staff. It was an incredible job they did, because goodness me, we've all seen the photos, we've seen it for real, horrendous. I think, if my memory serves me right, when I was across in Nottinghamshire, we've got a duty to provide some area for them anyway, by law. I don't know whether it's Boston, but in Lincolnshire that we definitely have. I know in Nottinghamshire, we had to provide 10 sites because we did up and puff quite a bit around Mansfield. We did try to delay it as much as possible, but the inevitable took priority over us. But yeah, CCTV was on my list. I'm sure that Stephen's looked at my list. I'm sure he has, because obviously everybody's heard me about CCTV on Fenside, but I think that's a prime example to put CCTV in that area. We need to safeguard all our parks. Taxpayers pay for them. The people of Boston pay for these places, and look what's happened to it. It's been horrendous what's happened. It really has. And I didn't know it 4 times in 3 years. That speaks volumes. Thank you very much, Peter, for that information. We really must put a fence up. I know some people say the eyesores, etc., but as Brian just said, it safeguards our children as well. And I've been involved in a ball coming out, it come out in front of my car. So I know it's close quarters. A fence would add some protection, I know it would. And I too am appalled by the police. Yes, Stephen's right, because I noted it earlier about the police force when we had that incident on Fenside. We got police from Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire when they came for that stabbing, what turned out to be a murder in the end. I spoke to 1 or 2 Nottinghamshire policemen that I knew from my time across there. So I know Nottinghamshire were involved in that. And I am totally appalled that we didn't get the police protection. Our people are taxpayers, so surely the police should safeguard us. I'm glad the chair is going to put the police crime commissioner and our MP on board. That would be great. Let's make them accountable, because goodness me, they certainly are, or should be. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to waffle on much more, because like I said, most of my questions haven't been asked. But it's just the police side that really irritates me. That you, Peter, and your staff were left purely, yes, the local constabulary were there, I know they were, I spoke to PCSO. And if it wasn't for them, you would have had no protection whatsoever. I find that appalling. I really do. We're only a stone's throw away from Lincoln. Lincoln gets everything. Boston gets nothing. That can't be right. And I'll shut up now, I'll get off my soapbox. But thank you again, Peter, and thank you very much, Matt. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, Councillor Hasty.
Firstly, I'd like to praise the officers for how they dealt with both the traveller encampments, both on my ward and Woodville Road. Now, I've been listening to everyone's comments tonight, and I can see both the arguments for Councillor Stevens and concrete bollards, because they'll offer more of a deterrent to travellers to try and smash them over with their cars. But I can also see Councillor Rush's point about the fence protecting from balls and kids running into the road. So I was just wondering, is there any way we can combine the two? So we have the fence and the bollards, maybe sort of like double distanced away, so you get both effects?
We could, but obviously the costs are there, Councillor Hasty, for you to see. So it would just be double the cost.
But if we're going to do the job, we might as well do it properly. That's all I see it, how I see it. So yeah, it could be double the cost, but isn't it worth it in the long run?
I'm only merely making the comment as to the costs. It's up to the committee what they decide to do. I mean, I've used my officers to bring this meeting together, and obviously I've asked the officers to come up with some costings, which you have. It's up to this committee to make a decision.
Yeah, I'm finished now. I'll let someone else have one.
Okay, Councillor Hasty. Fair enough. Councillor, is it Griggs?
Yeah, evening, Mr. Chairman. Quite a lot of my stuff, same as other councillors, has already been gone through. Although, again, I would just like to reiterate how disappointing the police response is. I completely agree with what Councillor Rush said. You know, if you show you're a soft touch, they will just keep coming back. And I find it extremely disappointing that the local residents were essentially being terrorised, and the police basically said, oh, well, they're being a bit naughty, but we're scared of them, is what it feels like. And I'm sure many local residents will probably agree. You know, no one in this meeting tonight is above the law. A crime is a crime. And yeah, I think Inspector Harrod's fantastic when she comes in and says, you know, gives us our updates and says how much work the police are doing. I think we all appreciate that. But that being said, as Councillor Woodliff alluded to, in cases of emergency situations, we can call on other forces. So as well as writing to the police, and I know we're going to invite Mark Jones, I wonder if we could write a letter from BTAC asking how much discount the residents around the area are going to get for services they required that weren't available to them. You know, that we all pay our Police and Crimes Commission precept so that there is a police force there when we need it, not so that the police can say, well, you might need it, but tough. We don't really want to deal with that, because to me, that's what it feels like. Yeah, I think the response of our guys were fantastic. And again, the local force, yeah, the local policing team, yeah, again, you can't fault their response. I will agree with what Councillor Stevens said about the fence being ripped up. We need to make sure whatever we do, and I get that obviously we don't want to drag it out and take forever to get it done, but we need to ensure that whatever fence we're putting in is suitable for the job it's there for. And not only that, as Councillor Rush alluded to, yeah, it's a fantastic scenescape for the borough. Safety is #1 priority and security, but we need to ensure that whatever we're putting in doesn't detract from the great spot that is Woodville Road Park. I do have one question for Peter Hunt. Obviously, looking at the timeline given to us, I think a 2-hour response before we showed up isn't too bad. However, I saw that Councillor Rush had said that on social media that he was alerted to it at 10:30. So I'm just wondering why, if Councillor Rush was informed at got there down there at 10:30 and saw it, why it then took our officers 4.5 hours, or just over 4.5 hours from that, before we'd managed to mobilise. Do we not have enough resources available? Yeah, is it potentially something BTAC could help out with? Because at the end of the day, the safety of our residents is our chief concern, and 4.5 hours can be a long time. And again, yeah, and that's just for the initial response. So obviously, if we're struggling that much on Teams, I think if Councillor Rush reported it around 10:30, yeah, 4.5 hours isn't particularly great. I think all my other points I'd got down have been said. Obviously, we discussed we're going to look at other parks and CCTV, but I think that's about it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Griggs. Peter, would you like to come back on that?
Yeah, thank you. I think in occasions of travellers coming onto areas, especially in residential areas, we do get to know, or the police do get to know pretty much immediately. And while checking on this, the very first report that we received to the police was at 12, as I put in my report, was at 12:54, and then the council got their first report at 13:03. I've not found any evidence of them coming on before then. I'm not saying they didn't, but it definitely wasn't reported to the police or ourselves until around about the 1 o'clock period. Maybe Councillor Rush can detail that a little bit further.
Thank you, Peter. Did you want to make a comment on that, Councillor Rush?
I do actually. And forgive me if I didn't go to bed with my watch on and keep an eye on it all night. And I may be out within about 20 or 30 or 40 minutes. However, let me just elaborate a little bit. Now, no one has said anything wrong here, but I have to be honest and tell you this, that the first phone call I got was from a resident who said that there was a white van pulling on to the park. Now, as soon as I got notice of that, I actually got on and started to ring the two numbers that I had for the Borough Council. Now, I do know that everyone's working from home, so we have to be quite tolerant and patient. However, what I must tell you, Mr. Hutton, is this. The two ladies that we were dealing with, that I was trying to deal with, to try and get them to get hold of you and your staff, right, had no idea how to do that. Now, I came on here tonight wanting to accolade, and I have, in fact, but there was a glitch, if you like, and I would like you to investigate why it was that there wasn't a contact number. Now, I know that you were away for the weekend, or away for some reason. Sorry, that sounds a bit like you were on a holiday, but I don't mean to accuse you of that. But we were left with one officer with the capabilities of doing what he had to do. Now, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I'm going on, but I do think it's very important that there seems to be a breakdown of communication. And when this happened first, I would assume that had those two young ladies, and they were very, very helpful, they did everything they could to help me source someone. And it wasn't until later on that Mr. Dunn was actually found, and Mr. Dunn was working very hard. But the initial impact was gone by then. And I think there should be an explanation as to why there was only one chap available. And that was at round about 12, as you said, 1 o'clock, fine. But in a case like this, it's sort of nipping it in the bud is what we wanted, isn't it? And I hope you would agree that we were a little longer getting there than we should have done. And I have to be honest as well that Mr. Dunn did a great job whilst he was there. But, you know, fair dues, you weren't there. So I don't suppose that you can speak with, you know, with any sense of presence. So if you can explain that to the members, and let's not worry about exactly what time it was. That was where I came from, and I was the first one on the spot, first one on the phone, first one on the spot, and no one else appeared. Over to you, Mr. Hunn.
Thank you, Councillor Rush, and I have done some investigations on this, and I think it would be helpful for members if I detailed how many I do actually have in my team. I have one antisocial behaviour officer that covers East Lindsey District. I have one antisocial behaviour officer who covers Boston Borough area, and I have a part-time antisocial behaviour officer who works Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, whose fixed-term contract comes to the end in December this year. I was away, as you said, on that particular weekend, that Friday, and the week after, and my East Lindsey ASB officer was on annual leave that week, being at the end of July. So Mr. Dunn was the only officer that we had for East Lindsey and Boston Borough Council. And unfortunately, that is the state of a fact. We have no other officers that could deal. Obviously, the part-time officer didn't work on that Friday. She only works Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The reception customer service ladies who took the calls do have mobile contact details and obviously office numbers which go through from there. At the time of the calls, Mr. Dunn was on his dinner, and I'm sure members would appreciate that he is allowed a lunch break at that time, and he picked up as soon as he got back of his lunch break and started that procedure. I'm going to applaud Mr. Dunn because he could not have done any quicker. There was 29 legal notices that he needed to put together. He needed to get the police together to get supported, and he did that within an hour and 15 minutes of obviously being that first notification. So that is the facts, and I appreciate you're going to come back, Councillor Rush.
Yes, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Peter. I wasn't trying to bring anyone down or criticise anyone. It was a horrendous state of affairs, and it may well have been circumstantial, all of the issues that we had, and maybe under any other conditions we would have had plenty of men around. So, you know, please don't take it too seriously, but do take it seriously. So, you know, what we had here, though, was an awful lot of people getting in touch with me that were absolutely horrified of what was going on. And out of that may come mixed messages. It may be, but I've not once criticised Mr. Dunn at all. In fact, I've been very, very supportive of what he did, and I don't think for a minute anyone could have done a better job than he did. It was the timings that I was concerned about, nothing more. I'm quite surprised and in fact shocked and annoyed at your report that we have so few people available for this kind of incident. And I do feel sorry for you if you're having to manage that sort of thin blue line that we have, really, because that's not the way it should be. In fact, it seemed like a political point, but this town needs to be upmarketed a bit. It needs to be treated with a bit more respect by Lincolnshire County Council and possibly the police and everyone else, because all we're getting is the thin edge of the wedge, and we don't get a fair deal. So I applaud you. I applaud Mr. Dunn, and in fact, I am very pleased with the way my fellow councillors have come out on this particular evening and supported what we're doing. I will be proposing that we do put forward the fence, the most effective barrier that we can, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Austin, Alison, please. Councillor Austin.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Right. Well, first of all, like everyone else, I think we owe, a great thanks and gratitude to all who were involved. Peter Hunn and the members of his team, to the local police who did attend and support, and of course also to Matt Fisher's team, who had to then try and clear up and make it safe again. Right, I doubt if I'm going to say anything much that is new. And I'm not going to ask any questions, but I'm going to try and put some slightly different slants on it. In my own ward, the experiences that I've had to I've encountered of this nature have been on the industrial estate, which obviously is quite a different situation, except of course it's people's livelihoods, and it is not something that's for them no better than any or no worse than anything else. Everything like this has to be treated equally. I'm also aware of the rather seemingly lengthy court procedure that there is, but I think I can say that at least in this county, we can get through it a lot quicker than some other areas in the country. Now, you've talked a lot about the fence, and I fear, although it's not going to enhance the street scene, that the only sensible option is to have the fence that is recommended. From experience, not in this sort of context, but at two places within my own area. One is where Wibberton Low Road, the old bit of it that used to be the way to the industrial estate and isn't anymore now. There are bollards, and the problems that highways have had trying to find something which is not rammable by an HGV. It's taken a long time to try and deal with that. And of course, also we've had bollards at the top of Slippery Gout Lane. And again, it's very, very difficult. Concrete bollards are not very strong. What would possibly enhance the fence, because we have to accept it's not going to, on its own, enhance, it's going to be just the opposite. It's going to detract from the street scene, as that's one of the prime entrances to the town. But it was suggested to me actually by a fellow councillor, I think it was Councillor Bedford, suggested, well, plant some small hawthorn at the bottom, because hawthorn, as it grows, is extremely, shall we say, user unfriendly with prickles, and that will just make things a little bit harder. So although it's not going to do much, it might just make it look a bit better and just deter the odd person from trying to get at it and break it down. Right. A couple of you have talked about we should provide facilities. We do provide facilities. This is written into the local plan. I'd have to go to the other side of the house, I'm afraid, to look up my local plan and get the reference, but you've all got a copy, you can all look it up. We have facilities on the Redstone estate. There are some which are more permanent, but there are also facilities for people passing through. Because of the small size of the borough and our local plan is joint with South Holland, the majority of these, almost you might say, overnight stops are actually located within South Holland, but some are only just over the border. So, you know, it is not correct to say we do not provide. We provide exactly what is required. And I would just like to, you know, it is our duty to do so. And our plan wouldn't have got approval had we not had that in it. Right, now then, yes, the police. And I think I echo all that Councillor Woodliff said. I found it very disconcerting when I read the solicitor's report that he was not criticising our local police who don't have the resources, but saying, you know, that, or I interpreted it anyway as being there should have been resources provided from either, you know, from Netlham for the county force, or if they couldn't, then from further afield. And I think this is something that, you know, everything that Councillor Woodliff said, you know, we should be supporting, and we want that, and we expect that support for the people in this area. Right, these incidents are extremely regrettable, and, you know, everyone who's been affected by this, you know, I think we have a degree of feeling helpless, but the least we can do now is to say thank you to everyone, and let's accept it, and we pay for the appropriate fence. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Councillor Danny, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And thank you, Peter, and thank you, Matt, for the report. Well, from myself, I will share with you some experience which has happened to me just a week ago with the police. And before that, I would just like to state that the issue here is not just the fencing. Yes, we need to fence the park, and so we have to fence most of the parks in our town. If we fence the parks in the town, yes, they will not be able to travelers to get to the parks. That's fine. Maybe that's 1-0, but then they will park anywhere. If you go to Gilbert Drive, there is plenty of spaces where they can park again. So are we gonna fence all the town? Are we gonna probably bollard all the towns and every area in town, every empty space? I don't think so we're gonna be able to do that. The issue here, it's much bigger. I think the issue here is probably for the parliament and for the government to change the legislations. And from my side, I think we should put more pressure on our MP or the MPs of Lincolnshire to deal with the issue properly in the right way. Yes, if we put bollards and protect the park, Woodville Park or any park in town, it will be a good idea. But if they park anywhere in town, they're gonna do the same damages somewhere else. They're gonna rob houses. They're gonna disturb the residents. They're gonna create mayhem. They're gonna litter. I mean, these people, that's how they are. Are we gonna be able to change their habits? No. They have the right, in their opinion, they have the right to be anywhere. So they think that they're above the law. And this is an issue which is, as I say, the government has to think about and give us something or some rights at least, so we can be able to defend ourselves. It's matter, this has become like a war. If they come to a park in 3 years 4 times, and they can be anywhere. So that's how I see it. To probably designate a place for them where probably we can put a water tank, a toilet, and a skip, so they can be there and they can put all their rubbish there and we can clean it. Yes, we can. They will not be happy because they are going to go to town again and they're going to do whatever they do. So this is the issues. The law is not in our side. The law, I will think, in Great Britain is very weak, and it gives these people the right to do whatever they want. And it's not happening only in Boston, it's happening everywhere. It's all around the country. They are the travelers, they have no place. So they would like to park their 30 vans or 20 vans and let their kids roam around and break things and, you know, steal from shops and disturb the residents, as I say. I will share with you this experience because we are talking about the police and the time it took them to arrive to the place. Last week on Wednesday, I was walking down White Bargate, and as everyone knows, White Bargate is not a cycling area. It's only the buses. It's only for the pedestrians. While I was walking, there were this X5 Jeep, new one, with 2 policemen in, driving slowly through White Bargate. I approached them and I said, can I talk to you? They just looked at me. They didn't bother. Probably they think he's another foreigner. Probably he's pissed or drunk. We don't have to talk to him. I asked them the second time, can you take your window down so I can talk to you? They didn't. Then I stood and I said, can I talk to you? I shouted, and then one of them, the driver, put the window down. And I introduced myself and I said, just want to ask you a question. You are driving slowly in White Bargate and a lot of kids are cycling. It was around 3:30, 3:45. Can't you get out and tell them not to cycle because it's for the pedestrians? Oh, we have a million things to do, such as, oh, we have to look at people not together above 6 people, blah, blah, blah. And I said, but you are driving slowly. You could get out of your car and do it for 10 minutes. No, we have other things. You can talk to your PCO. So it was no help. Their attitude wasn't very good. They are not willing to do the job, which is probably it's easy to do because they have other things to do. And it's not happening probably just in Boston again. It's happening everywhere. I was disappointed with their reaction. I wasn't very happy. And really, you can see people cycling and you can let them do that because the police is not helping. Nobody's helping. And probably it's the same is happening with the travelers because we had a meeting, I think the last BTAC, we talked with, I think Andy Fisher was there as one of the guests. And we talk about the same thing. How much did it cost us? He says it cost only £528, if I'm not mistaken, the court cost. But then it's a process. It takes 5 days, 6 days, or 3 days, whatever. So it's a process for us to get rid of the travelers. As I say, we have to look at the future. If we make a decision today to put bollards or fencing, whatever we're going to come with and we agree on, will it be the solution for the next probably 30 caravans to turn up in town and park probably in the marketplace or anywhere, which is we have a lot of empty spaces around Boston and they can park anywhere, they can destroy things and they can go, but it will take another 5 days to get rid of them. Yes, our resources, we don't have enough police in the town. This is the fact. I totally agree, which is the thing I always am against, and I think Councillor Rush will agree with me. I'm against that Lincoln takes all our money without any help. We are marginalized completely. I don't know why. I don't know who created this system. I'm still bemused at this system because they're taking all your money, but they're not giving you anything. If we need help, we don't get it. So what's the solution? What should we do? Where we go from here? And that's the questions for me. Bollard or fence in any park, it's not, it is a solution, temporary solution for the people living in this town, but they can park anywhere. What can we do? What's our options? We have to go through the same channels. We have to go through the same system again, is to raise it to the court, and we have to wait for the court to send the eviction. And once they get the eviction, they can go tonight, they can go tomorrow, can go in 2 days' time. There is nothing anybody can do to make them move. And we have quite a lot of experiences with the travelers around the country. They attack farms, they attack land, they attack anything. And And the thing which is even funnier, they make programs about them and they're happy to be on the program. Yes, it's all right to be there. So why? We're just travelers. Their kids, they don't go to school, but nobody can tell them anything. But if our kids they don't go to school, we have to pay fines or penalties. And that's how it works. It seems to me in this lovely country, things are against the taxpayers, and the taxpayers will always pick the bill, clean the destroyed parks, clean their rubbish, clean their litter, and you have to wait for 3-4 days to get, the eviction, orders from the court. I think that probably the government will look at it in general, and us as a BTAC members, I would support you, Mr. Chairman, to write a letter to our MP and probably other MPs who represent Lincolnshire to do something about it in the parliament and change the legislations, because I don't see it that we can prevent it from happening in the future. I will agree, if I may say, my option for it will be option 2, install, it's option 3, is install concrete bollards at 1.6 centimeters around the recreation ground. The park is so nice and it's clean. It's not far from both of us, Mr. Chairman. We go straight and we look at it. So as I say, we should go all together. And I think if you write a letter on our behalf, we support you to our MP, and let's push for the legislations to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Dorian, Anne, please.
My turn again, Chair.
It is, yes, your turn again, Anne, yeah.
Thank you. So just to move the debate on apace, if we could, Chair, I would like to propose that we go with the recommendations in Mr. Hunt's report, Mr. Fisher's report, Mr. Hall, and that we go with the galvanised fencing of £19,470 and move that forward. So I'd like, well, actually, I'll be honest, Mr. Chair, I thought that Councillor Rush proposed that. So if he can clarify that he proposed that earlier, I will second it.
I believe. Yeah. Councillor Rush, did you propose it?
I did indeed, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Dorian. That's very kind of you. You're a very honest person. Thank you.
Thank you. So I presume you're seconding it then, Councillor Dorian?
I am, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that, I have 2 speakers left, and then I will include that, and then we'll probably take the vote, I think. Councillor Griggs, did you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to clarify, I wasn't criticising Mr. Dunn in any way, shape or form. Yeah, I've met him on several occasions and he's always super enthusiastic and extremely hardworking. What I was suggesting is potentially, Mr. Chairman, you as a spokesman, if you could meet up with heads of service. Obviously, we're here as BTAC to provide a service to people who pay the BTAC precept. And I think sometimes, and I'm especially guilty of it, we fall into the what can we put on and do for our residents, such as things like new play equipment, new skate park events. Maybe it might be worth looking at whether or not we need to finance additional services for our residents, such as potentially an ASB person for the BTEC area. I don't know whether there's a demand for it or not. Mr. Hunn would be able to tell us, but I'm sure other departments might say, actually, we spend all our time dealing with BTEC issues, and it might be a way of us providing a better service for our residents. So it wasn't criticising Mr. Hunn and his team.
Thank you for that, Councillor, because I didn't actually take it that you was, but thank you for that clarification. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't want to add a nasty note, but I fear I've heard from a councillor a few minutes ago what I would consider almost to be a racial comment. Those of us, and I thought that person did, attended equality and diversity training only a few days ago. And if any letter is written, then I do not wish to be associated with that letter. Thank you. We can't judge the actions of a whole group of people by we can't judge a whole group of people by the actions of a few. And it must not be generalized as it was. I'm sorry, I feel very, very strongly about this.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Right, it's been moved and seconded then. Councillor Rush, Councillor Doran, there's no more speakers. Councillor Rush and Councillor Doran, the recommendations have been moved. I'll get back to them. I've been following everybody's debate. I've lost the recommendation. Is that members provide £19,470 to fund the protection of Woodville Road recreation ground with a galvanised steel fence similar to the one already in place around the play area. That's been moved and seconded by Councillor Rush and Councillor Dorian. Jeanette, if we could take the vote, please.
Yes, Chairman. If members could indicate whether they're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Alison Austin.
For.
Alan Bell.
For.
Councillor Danny.
I am against because I would like to go for option 3. It looks much better than having it all caged. That's the reason. Thank you.
Councillor Dorian.
For.
Councillor Goodale, Chairman.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Hasty.
For.
Councillor Howard.
For.
Councillor Rush.
For.
Councillor Stevens.
If I could add to, I'm going to agree with the committee. But if I could add, if it's possible, Chairman, please, that if the fence does get knocked down, like Sheldon's Field did, that we react to it immediately and get it put up immediately, because that was the way they got in, the gypsies got in before. So if that could be added to it, that our staff will react immediately and put it up, then I will agree. Thank you.
I'm happy to have that in, Councillor Stevens. It is a lesson which we did learn from the incursion in Shelton's Field. So,
Yes.
yeah, I'm sure we will. I'm happy to go along with that.
Thank you.
Chairman, it can't be added to the actual recommendation.
No, I appreciate that, Jeanette, but
certainly in the record of the meeting, yes.
Can we continue with the vote then, Chairman?
Councillor Woodcock.
For.
Councillor Stephen Woodliff.
For.
That's clearly carried, Chairman.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you for that, members. We move on to the final item on the agenda now, which is the forward plan. I would just like to say to members that it's my intention to increase the number of meetings. I've asked our committee section if it can be done, and they're in agreement with it. So if I increase the meeting frequency to every 6 weeks, my reasoning is obviously with the town council, which is on the next meeting agenda, and it's a single item agenda again. But I am concerned that we actually get, with the length of time that the votes take, we actually get to the meetings are taking a lot longer, shall we say. So I propose to actually increase the meetings so that we can actually have fewer items on the agenda, but means we can actually have better discussions, in my view. Obviously, the next meeting is the 7th of October, and we'll be setting up a town council. I'd also like to, well, I've asked Jeanette already to invite the Crime and Police Commissioner, Lincolnshire Police, and our MP to a future meeting of BTAC, the earliest opportunity we can fit them in, to be honest, to discuss the police report that we've already had this evening. Because I have to say, from my own personal point of view, I am not happy, although I'm very happy with the support we got from the local officers. It just seems to me that when we have officers being threatened in the way that Mr. Dunn was, that I don't think that's acceptable. And I think the you know, we need to really look at. We need to call them to account and the way forward, what the future will be, because as members have said, we you know, we can keep putting fences up, but I'm sure these incidents will keep happening, and we need to know how the residents of Boston are going to be protected in the future, our officers and the residents. And I think in the end of the day, the actual response on the police, and my own personal view was not the local police officers, I have to say, but lacking. I have passed the committee's well, my own feelings onto our staff for the good work they did, and I know Peter and Matt have passed those thanks on behalf of this committee to those members of staff. But just to say that the next meeting will be just a single item meeting instead of a town council. But I want to change the frequency of the meetings to make them well, basically every 6 weeks. I've spoken to our officers and they say they can accommodate that. And obviously with the town council issues moving forward, I think we'll probably need those amounts of meetings anyway. But obviously one of the main thoughts is to actually keep the agenda of items less, so that we can have a better debate, which I think we've had a really good quality debate this evening. So I hope members are happy with that. So on that, do we have anybody wish to comment on the work programme?
Councillor Dorian, Chairman.
Councillor Dorian.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm more than happy to endorse your suggestion of going to every 6 weeks. However, I would like to put forward a note of caution, really. I'm quite happy to not to be a pedant, and so when I know I've got to read committee papers, I schedule some time out in my diary to do that. And I've got to do that because I work full time. Now, recently, certainly in my experience in the last 6 months, with certain projects, I've had the agendas arrive, and then I've noticed the report is to follow. And that grieves me, Mr. Chairman, because it upskittles my schedule, and it means I have to then move other things to accommodate the report. Our reports, as per our constitution, should come out 5 days, minimum 5 days before the meeting. So I would just like to say to you, Mr. Chair, that, and the other thing that grieves me is that we don't find out till we get the agenda that the report's to follow, when in actual fact that officer must have known that there's no way they could have written the report in time for the agenda being published. I would like to say I'm not talking about any of the officers here tonight at all. In fact, none of the officers at the level here tonight ever let me down or ever let us down in that regard. So, Chair, it would be incumbent upon you then to ensure that if reports are requested and we believe are coming forward on the agenda, that they come in a timely fashion, Mr. Chair. So I would support your increase in meetings, but with that proviso, please.
Yeah, well, that was my main concern, Councillor Dorian, anyway, that we actually, that our clerical support, Jeanette and the team can actually get the items to us in good time. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's
Mr. Chair, can I just say I am not talking about the clerks here. I'm talking about the people who write the reports. Our clerks do a brilliant job, but they don't write the reports. I'm talking about officers at a far more senior level than our clerks who fail in their duty to provide timely reports.
Well, you have my assurance, Councillor Dorian, that I will endeavour to make sure that all reports are received in good time for our meetings.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So the work program, well, I say the work program. Have you got anything you wish to add, Mr. Perry?
No, thank you, Jim. Just to assure members that the report we had, which was for the 16th, which the date may change in December, about the wish list for the play area improvements and the update of Central Park, will also other improvements for other parks where officers from our property services have been out looking to try and look at ways we may be able to better secure as well. So we will also include that area in elements of view in the that report in December to look at over the new year, or prior to the new year starting, that we secure as many of our sites as possible to try and stop and allay the fears you have for your residents at the moment where travellers may be able to get on.
Right, well, thank you, Phil. I mean, obviously, I just I just put the caveat that we are going to ask the Police and Crime Commissioner and our MP and the Lincolnshire Police to attend a future meeting of BTAC. Obviously, it won't be the October one, but we will try and get them here as quickly as possible. So we may just have to move the items around a little, yeah. But we will get them to come as quickly as we can. Hopefully, all of them. But, anyone else got anything they wish to add to the work programme? Councillor Woodliffe.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with what Councillor Dorian said. I also think, I'm sure I'm correct in saying that previously the BTAC had monthly meetings. I'm sure that was so. I think when was it Councillor Welton and Councillor Gleeson were in charge?
Yes,
I think it was monthly. So I have no problem about more meetings. The other aspect, of course, is if our officers need more staff to support BTAC, I don't have any problem about, allocating, if we want to allocate more money, we've got the money, to the staff, to the officers, so that perhaps, we have sufficient support to be able to carry out everything we want to do. As we move towards hopefully a town council, we'll need to do all those type of things. So I see no reason why we can't pay for more staff to ensure that we have all the reports up front as we need them, and we have the support necessary to go forward. But yeah, if you want to have one every 6 weeks, you got my support. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. I mean, I did speak to the officers about that. Obviously, the monthly meetings may put a bit of a strain on them at the moment, but 6 weeks, I'm told that they can actually cope with it as we are. Obviously, if the committee feel we need to move to monthly meetings, then we may need to look at additional staff to service those meetings. That may be, but that'll be down to the committee. It's just something that I just felt at the moment with this, because these meetings with the voting system and everything else take so long, that it's it's far better to have an extra meeting and have less items on the agenda so that we actually get through them, rather than at the end of the night we're trying to rush through just to get, and members want to leave. And so that was the main thought behind it. But thank you for that, Councillor Woodley.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, if there's nobody got anybody else wish to comment, I would like to thank Peter and Matt for their report this evening. I thank you all members for your indulgence, and I will look forward to seeing you on the 7th of October for the item of setting up a town council. We have a couple of presentations on that. I don't know if we will actually get any to actually count to Councillor Doran's report. I'm not sure we'll actually get any written stuff for that before the meeting. I hope we will. I shall try and push that along, but because they are presentations. But I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everybody. Good night.